Hi, and welcome back. I'm Dr. Michelle Sands, a naturopathic physician and co-founder of Glow Natural Wellness, a global natural medicine clinic and education platform. So today's topic is going to be cardiovascular health. And cardiovascular health is one of the biggest health challenges in our country, in our world. And we're going to cover two of the most common and most easy to work with issues in cardiovascular health. And these are high blood pressure and high cholesterol. So there are a lot of safe ways to treat these naturally. And if we start to work on them in the early phases, then we can really head off bigger problems that might be coming down the line. Because these can be life-threatening if left unchecked. And this really is key. The best time to start using natural medicines is before you're at that crucial stage where you have to be hospitalized. If you know that there's a health risk in your family, if you have a hereditary issue, or if you have issues in the past, then that's something that we can look at in a proactive way. Let's start off with high blood pressure. So high blood pressure is when the blood is putting too much pressure on the walls of your blood vessels, your veins, your arteries, all the tubes of blood flowing through the inside of your body. And you can imagine it's like a garden hose, right? If you cover up the end of the hose while it's running, and the water's coming out, then you basically are going to build up pressure within the hose. And then if you take your hand off, it like shoots out like really hard, right? So it's all, instead of flowing out normally, it's gonna spray out with a lot of force. And so if you can imagine blood building up pressure inside your own blood vessels in a similar way, it's pretty intense. And this is what happens. And there's a couple of reasons why this actually can happen in the body. And there are different types of things that can cause this problem. So the two most common reasons why we see hypertension or high blood pressure are pretty universal. And we can reduce these things. If we can work on this, we will have a huge impact, not only on your high blood pressure, but also on your overall health. If you want to just address the two main causes, it's going to be stress and diet. So particularly salty foods, processed foods. So if we deal with these two things and these two things only, we can make a huge impact in our health. So let's start with stress, right? Stress is a big one. When you have stress, you get tense, and you probably didn't need me to tell you that, right? We've all had an experience of having a stressful day or a stressful week or a stressful year, and we get this pain like in our neck and our lower back or wherever you personally carry stress. And this can also be happening inside the body, inside your blood vessels. The blood vessels themselves can become tense, and when they tense up, they basically constrict. So they close up and they constrict like a band of muscle wrapped around the blood vessel, and that muscle can tighten up and constrict the vessel and make a smaller hole, or it can relax and then you can have a wider tube for things to flow through. So when your blood vessels constrict and get narrower, that is associated with tension. And this is why high blood pressure is also called hypertension, because there's high amounts of tension. And so just if you feel the tension in your neck or your back, or you have a tension headache, the squeezing is happening. And this is the same for those muscles around your arteries and your veins. And when they constrict, they cause this tension, and then that makes it harder for your blood to flow through it. It makes your blood vessels narrower, and that builds up the pressure. And because the reason why the pressure builds up is because you have the same amount of blood in your body, the same amount of blood needs to flow through, and now you have less space for that blood to move through. And so basically you're trying to fit a high volume of blood into a smaller area. Just think about if you accidentally buy a pair of pants that's too small, then you're trying to stuff the same amount of you into smaller pants, and that can create a lot of tension. It can create a lot of stress, and it's uncomfortable for your body. You can't squeeze into that area. And so this can lead to problems. And that direct connection of stress to high blood pressure, we often don't make that connection. And it doesn't have to be one particular type of stressful situation. So whether it's stress about money, stress about your relationships, stress about work, stress about family, even stress about your health, or any of the many things that can cause stress in our lives, the result can be the same kind of effect. And so obviously a great solution would be to get rid of all your stress. But that is not really something that is within most of our power. We can't just quit everything and go sit on the beach. We can take a vacation, but there are a lot of stressful things in our lives that we just can't escape. Maybe you can escape some of them, but you can't escape all stress. And all stress is not exactly bad either. But there are some herbs and some holistic strategies, some steps you can take in your life that can be super helpful. So let's start off with the plants, the natural medicines and the herbs that can really help when you're dealing with stress. So the first one I want to talk about is chamomile. So chamomile, it's something that you'll find in the grocery store in tea bags. It's okay to take it in tea bags, and it's wonderful in a tea. You can get organic chamomile, but if you can't get the perfect chamomile, that's completely fine. Anything you can find is going to be appropriate here. What's accessible, what's available, what's affordable is what you're going to use. So don't write off the herbs that you'll find in the grocery store, because they actually do have great healing properties. So you can absolutely go to your local store and buy a box of chamomile tea and in the tea bags, and you can use it to help you with your stress. So definitely that is a great option. Now, chamomile tea, when you're using it as a medicine, you may want to double up on your tea bag. So you don't want to just do one tea bag, 1 cup. You want to do 3 or 4 tea bags in that cup, and you want to do it several times a day. And that can really help you relax. It can help relax your muscles, it can help relax your mind and your body. And that is all going to have a direct impact on the amount of tension in your entire body, including your blood vessels. So that's what we're trying to work on here. So in order to get this effect, like I said, you're going to have to drink 3 to 4 cups a day, and you want to do it double strength. You want to let the tea and sit and steep for a while as well. So you don't want it to be really light in color. You want to do at least 3 to 4 cups per day that are brewed for about, at least let it sit for a half hour so it gets nice and deep. And this is going to really help you to relax your muscles and your nerves all over your body. You can drink it hot. You can also drink it cold. You can brew it up and then put it in the refrigerator and put some ice in it. That's also totally fine to do. And chamomile is actually a flavor that's pretty mild. Most people actually enjoy it. It's not too offensive or herby. You can sweeten it up a little bit. You can put some honey in there. Some people like to put a little lemon into a chamomile, and that's super nice. You can actually feel free to put in other like flavoring herbs, things like peppermint or hibiscus. These actually have their own medicinal benefits as well, but they actually can flavor your teas or your herbs that you're taking. And we'll be talking about some of these in later sessions. Feel free to use anything that's going to make your tea more enjoyable, but stay clear of the sugar, because the sugar is one of the things that can actually contribute to cardiovascular issues. So you don't have to struggle through and drink something that you don't like. Definitely chamomile is pretty low bar though, it's fairly tasty and it's a fairly familiar flavor. You may have already had chamomile tea. You may already have some in your cupboard because it's a pretty common tea to have. But just as a general idea, when you're working with any medicinal herbs or plants, you can totally make them enjoyable. Cinnamon is another thing that you can add to make things more flavorful. Yeah, so you want to enjoy your medicine as well. So when you're working with chamomile, it can help you manage stress. You want to drink some chamomile tea every day. You want to be very consistent. So you don't want to just drink your chamomile tea when you're feeling stressed. You want to really do it on a regular basis, because the reality is if you've got high blood pressure, and your body's basically telling you that it's been under stress for a long period of time. And it's not just the moment when you feel the stress. It's probably a fairly high level of stress that you just became accustomed to. We accept a lot of stress in our life. So we don't want to just reduce stress on the day that you feel extra stressful. We want to reduce that baseline high level that you've already invited into your life. So we want to bring it down as much as we can, and we want it to be consistent. So this isn't like taking ibuprofen, or it's not like taking a pharmaceutical. It's something that is going to be part of your life. And drinking chamomile on a regular basis will really help your muscles to relax and relax that tension in your vessels. And this is something you want to do every day. And another herb we can talk about is Tulsi. So Tulsi is also known as holy basil. Tulsi is amazing. You can also get it in tea bags. You can get it in capsules, like supplement form, or you can get it in a tincture. Tea bags are pretty widely available. Pretty much all grocery stores are going to carry CT or holy basil tea. You can also get them online, but a holy basil tea has become pretty common. And there was a period of time last year when I get medical reviews through my email, and every single day for an entire month, there was a health benefit of holy basil. That's why it's becoming so popular. It's really a good thing. It's really a fantastic herb, and it helps with a lot of different things in the body. It supports health in so many ways. It particularly helps you cope with stress, and it also reduces inflammation in the body. It can also help with cravings, which is a great when you have cardiovascular issues as well. It can totally help with high blood pressure because of the reduction in stress and inflammation. So this is great because the accompanying problem in hypertension is an increased amount of inflammation inside the body. And a large part of that tension is due to the impairment of blood flow as a result of that inflammation. So Tulsi is really helpful for quieting down that excessive inflammation. And again, it also helps you cope with stress. So it actually has a kind of a twofold effect. And Tulsi is in a category of herbs that we call adaptogens. So it's not going to be too calming. It's going to get your body to an area where you can adapt to changing circumstances. So including stressful circumstances, you're going to be able to deal with these more easily. And one of the great things about Tulsi is it helps us to make a transition in our response to stressful things. So if something scary happens, or there's a loud noise, or you're worried about something, or whatever happens in this like stressful moment, you need to have a reaction to survive. That's what our body does. We react to stressful things. But we don't want to be having a reaction to every email we get. We don't want to be freaked out by every single thing that happens in our life, every news story we see on TV, all the things that happen throughout the day. We don't want to have this freaked out stress response. We want to be able to come back down again quickly into a place of calm and relaxation or centeredness. And Tulsi really helps us make that transition more easily, going from a place of agitation, anxiety, alert, fight or flight, to it helps us to recognize that the threat has passed and that we're in a relatively safe space and we can release that tension. And this is known as a self-protective mechanism. So we can release that. And so Tulsi is wonderful for all those things. Now, if you're taking a medication for diabetes, then it's important to know that if you work with Tulsi on a regular basis, you want to test your blood glucose levels daily, because Tulsi can actually improve blood sugar levels and diabetes enough that you might need to monitor and make sure that your dose of medication for your diabetes is still correct. And you definitely want to talk to your doctor about that. I will talk more about Tulsi when I get into diabetes and pre-diabetes in a future session. But for now, you just want to mention to your doctor, if you're taking Tulsi every day, you just want to let him know that and keep testing your blood glucose. You can do that at home with a glucometer. He might need to know, your doctor, whether it's a he or she, they might need to know that they need to adjust your diabetes medication, especially if you're not only doing Tulsi, but you're also making changes to your diet as well. It's always a good idea to stay on top of that. And this is one of those herbs that does have that effect. And so I always want to just making sure that your blood sugar readings are, and when they're getting too low, then that's definitely a good thing. but we want to make sure that we are also monitoring any medication that you're taking. So when you're working with Tulsi, you're going to want to drink it regularly, just like with chamomile. 3 to 4 cups of Tulsi tea a day is great to do this every day, because we want every day to be helping us bring those tension levels down so that we can relax the tension in the blood vessels, relax the tension in the heart, bring that blood pressure level down to reduce our hypertension. And now you can switch back and forth between the Tulsi and the chamomile. You can go one day, you can drink the chamomile, the next day you can drink the Tulsi, or you can mix your chamomile and Tulsi together. That's completely fine. And it's also quite delicious. It's actually one of my favorite blends. So you also don't have to make each cup individually. If you're busy and you're on the go, you can brew a whole big quart of it at one time. So especially if it's a hot day, you can do in the morning, you can just boil up, or some point in the day, you can boil up a kettle of water, and you can put 3 or 4 tea bags into a quart-sized mason jar. You can pour the hot water over it and let it brew. And then if you want, you can put it in the refrigerator and you can have iced tea. And you can drink that throughout the day. It's totally fine to have it cold or hot, just whatever works for you, whatever's going to help you to drink it throughout the day. And so when I'm talking about most of these herbs, I'm going to be talking about them in terms of teas. However, these herbs can be used in a variety of ways. They can be used in infusions, concoctions, and tinctures. But the easiest way for most people to do this is in a tea. And I know that our lives are busy. I know that there's kids running around, there's work to be done. You got to go to your job, and if you have all your tea made at one time, you can just take it with you. You can put it into your water bottle. You can bring the mason jar wherever you go. And you can, if you have it with you, then you're going to drink it. Same thing with water. Like I used to always recommend that people carry their water bottle around so that they drink some water. And the same thing with tea, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be like, oh my gosh, I got to have my tea, and then try to drink it all at the end of it. So chamomile and Tulsi are both really helpful herbs for high blood pressure. But there's some other things that we can talk about that can really help aside from just taking herbs, right? There are some wonderful lifestyle things that we can talk about. And the first one I want to highlight is movement. And so this doesn't have to mean that you have to go to CrossFit, run a marathon, or go to the gym. It doesn't mean you have to be even lifting weights at all. So we're talking about movement in the most general way here. So that would mean any type of exercise, but also it can include playing with your kids, going for a walk, taking your dog for a walk, doing chores around the house, working in the yard, gardening, or just walking. If your commute involves a long walk, then that counts as movement. If you walk to the mailbox, that counts as movement. So whatever type of movement that you can get into your day, this is really important, because when you think about how much time we spend sitting in one place or standing in one posture or leaning against a counter or whatever it might be, that actually stagnation can really cause stress and tension in the body. And then movement helps the body to release stress, to release tension. And so if you wake up in the morning and you're feeling kind of stiff, right, you need to get moving and get that blood flowing a little bit. And if you can go for a walk, that would be great. If you can do some light yoga around the house, you can do some type of movement, whatever feels good to you. And then once you do that, you start to loosen up. So even if you do some calisthenics or some stretching, and once you start moving, you start to feel more freedom. Your joints stop cracking after a little while, and you feel like your blood is actually flowing better because it is. And when we move the whole body, it actually does help reduce our blood pressure quite substantially. Because when you move more of your muscles, you draw blood into the periphery of your body, right? Blood needs to fuel the muscles. So if you take a walk, you bring the blood that's down into your legs, and then it circulates back up. So the blood has to go to the muscles that are working. And so when you're walking, your legs are moving, your arms are swinging, so blood's moving down your hands and back up. And Even like when you're walking and it's cold out, you can feel your body warm up after a while. So you're like, okay, I'm feeling a little warmer, and this is good. This is because the blood is circulating. And so that's why we warm up before we work out, because we want to get blood flow to all the little muscles in the body. But what that means is that it's not going to be collected or all stuck in one spot in the middle. And when we're sedentary, when we're sitting down all the time, when we're not moving at all, our blood becomes stagnant. And that is why movement is very important. It has that physical effect of helping the blood flow, reducing pressure by distributing the blood around the body. It's not all pent up in one area, but it also helps to relieve stress, and it can just help to relieve feelings of stress and anxiety. So get out there and move around a bit, and that is really important. And if you don't move around a lot right now, if you have not been exercising, and even if exercise seems intimidating, you can just take a walk for 10 minutes 3 times a day. That alone can make a huge improvement in your blood pressure, but also your weight, your mood, or you can choose something you enjoy, like dance around the house. And if you have a job that makes you move all day, you may come home at the end of the day and you might be sore, and you might think, I don't want to go for a walk because I've been moving all day, and that's actually fine. If you have a physical job, if you're a waitress or a mail carrier or somebody that's lifting boxes all day, instead of going for a walk, you can just do some stretches. You can, if there's a particular part of your body that you use a lot in your job, like if you use your hands a lot or you use your arms a lot, you can just give those parts of your body a little extra TLC by stretching in the opposite direction. So if you bend over a lot in your job, if you're hunched over a lot, you can stretch in the backwards direction so that you get your body back into balance. Even if you sit in your chair all day, just the twisting motion and just moving your shoulders around, that is something that can help relax the muscles that you've worked so hard that day. Because again, our whole point here is we want to relax the tension. Like we want to help the body to come to a state of ease. If you're all tensed up, then that's the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. And so if you have a job where you sit almost all day, if possible, take some breaks and go walk around the building. Go for a walk. If you have a job where you have to move your body all day and you're sore at the end of the day, then what you want to focus on is doing some stretching, working in some of the opposite motions to relieve those tight muscles, because the tightness, the tension is what can be contributing to the hypertension. And in any case, what you want to do is look for periods of time where you're either sedentary or you're doing a repetitive motion. You want to break those up. If you're at work, the amount of breaks you get is not always up to you. But if you do have breaks, take them and move in a different way from what you've been doing all day. So if you've been sedentary, if you're sitting at a desk all day, when it's time to take a break, get up, walk around, even walking up and down the stairs, stretching a bit. This is going to be helpful. If you're in a sitting position, standing up, even if it's just 3 to 5 minutes, that can be super helpful. You probably heard that sitting is the new smoking. That is sitting uninterrupted. But if you are able to get up every half hour or even hour, that is going to be super helpful. And the same thing with doing a repetitive motion. If you can do the opposite type of the movement, so if you are typing all day and you feel like you're getting carpal tunnel, stretching your hands back in the opposite direction, that is going to be helpful for you. But in general, just break up periods of being sedentary or periods of repetitive motion with something opposite of that. And that is going to help a ton. And then one other thing that you can do in your life to help you deal with stress is sleep. So sleep is another one of our foundational practices of natural medicine. And sleep is a time when your body is actually clearing stress out. So there are hormones that we get produced when we have stress. Those get broken down and removed from the body when we're sleeping. So if you're able to do it, try to get at least 8 hours of sleep per night. I know this can be hard, especially if you work late. It can be hard if you have small children, but do the best that you can to get proper amount of sleep. And this is always hard for me too. Try to get as close to 8 hours as you can. Even if you can get a little more than 8 hours, that can be excellent for you, especially if you have a lot of stress in your life. Whatever amount of sleep you're getting now, see if you can arrange some stuff in your life so that you can sleep even a half hour more or an hour more, whether that means like watching a little bit less television or changing something in your schedule so that you're not having to get up as early. That can be super helpful. I know it's a hard trade-off because when you have a stressful day, you just want to relax and veg out in front of the TV. But I really urge you to experiment with it. Experiment with different changes you can make in your life that will allow you to get into bed a little earlier and be in bed a little longer to allow your body to sleep a little longer, because that time that you're sleeping, you're actually clearing out stress from your body. It's like giving your body a chance to reset and start over. And sleep is just so very important. Stress is one of the big drivers for high blood pressure. And the other one that we should be talking about now is processed foods, especially processed foods that are high in salt, and that is most of them. And there's a couple of different ways that these things can lead to the heightened pressure in the body and the hypertension. So when we talk about salty foods, one of the things that they do is they cause your body to retain water. We've all had that time where we had a pizza and we had to drink a bunch of water and then we felt bloated the next day. And this means that your body overall has more stuff in it, right? It has more fluid inside of it. And instead of peeing out as much water as you normally would, instead now you can be keeping in a lot more of that water inside. That's retention, water retention, retaining water. And what that means is that it's going to put more pressure on your blood vessels and everything. It's going to put more pressure on your body. So you might have felt bloated. You can feel pressure in your belly. It sticks out a little when you're bloated, or sometimes your fingers might swell up, or even your ankles might swell up a little bit. That's because we're holding on to more water than we should. Extra water is actually pushing against things in your body because it needs some room to expand. It needs somewhere to be. It's trying to make some space for itself. And so the other piece going on here is that these salty processed foods, they can also lead to inflammation. They can actually induce inflammation in the body. And what they're doing is they're causing inflammation because they're generally made with ingredients that cause little damage, they beat up the inside of your blood vessels. And when this happens, your body needs to make a little scab to heal it, and it makes that with cholesterol. And we're going to talk about cholesterol in a minute, but when we eat processed foods, when we eat things that are unnatural, it actually damages the insides of our blood vessels. And so what that means is that you get this spot in the blood vessel, a spot in the tube where it's more narrow because you had to repair it, had to put like a bandage over it. Your body does that naturally, and that takes up some space. So that causes more pressure because there's not enough room in the blood vessel, and so it squeezes it a bit and you get more pressure. And that's how eating processed foods, not just the salt for the water retention, but the processed foods themselves actually do damage to our body. So one of the first things we can do is reduce the damage by reducing the amount of processed foods that we're taking in our body. The first one is try not to eat these foods, but that's hard because they're delicious and they're actually made in a way to make us want more. And sometimes that's all that's available for us. So things like chips and cookies and pretzels and fast food, even things like canned stew or canned vegetables, soups sometimes are super high in salt and super high in just crap. And these things are very available. They're often cheap. And they can actually taste good. But the reason why they taste good is because we're putting chemicals in our body that trick our taste buds. We're thinking they're delicious. Those are the chemicals that are actually causing the damage. They tend to be addictive, and that's why we want more of these processed foods. The food companies do a lot of research to try to find the flavors and the chemicals that actually trick our brains into wanting more. Why I'm telling you this is because it can be hard to give them up. But on the other hand, they're causing damage to your body. So if you want to reduce the amount of damage, it doesn't mean you have to never eat a potato chip again. But if you want to reduce the amount of foods that you eat, of the processed foods that you eat, it's going to help a lot. You can choose organic options that have less chemicals. You can choose lower salt, lower sodium options, and that's going to help a little bit. That's going to give you a little bit improvement. It'll be a little bit better for you for sure, but it's also better if you just eat more vegetables and you have less room for all the crap. When you add more vegetables to your diet in whatever way you can, you kind of basically load up on things like fruits and vegetables. And then when you have all that in your life, so much as possible, then basically you don't have room for the processed foods as much. It doesn't matter what type of vegetable I'm talking about. If you like broccoli, eat a bunch of broccoli. You don't have to suffer through a vegetable that you don't like. Any vegetable is good, and you want to get multiple colors if possible. You can get some orange, some green, some red, some purple. This is going to give you even more flavor. It's going to give you more visual appeal. It's going to look great on your plate. And each of those colors actually has compounds that's going to be beneficial to your body, delivering different anti-inflammatory plant chemicals into your body. So these are good things that help your body to keep inflammation at bay, keep inflammation low, and repair some of the damage done by the inflammation from all those processed foods. So the idea is you're putting in more real food and you're crowding out the ability to eat processed food, and that can directly reduce your blood pressure. So anytime you can choose vegetables or fruits, that is a great thing. It doesn't even have to be fresh. You can get frozen vegetables. Frozen vegetables are great because they're more accessible. They're oftentimes less expensive, and they actually last longer, so they don't go bad and there's less waste. If you do have access to fresh vegetables, that is wonderful. That's the best. But frozen vegetables can be equally as fantastic. They're easier to get, they're easier to prepare, you don't have to wash them, and they're also less expensive. And so oftentimes I will always have my freezer stocked with frozen vegetables and even frozen berries, because they make it super fast and super easy to get them into a meal. So it's just a lot easier. There's no waste. They don't go bad. One of my pet peeves is berries that get moldy in the fridge. So frozen berries are definitely a great way to go. And you can just heat them up whenever you need. Whenever you can keep them frozen, just take out what you want to eat for dinner. And that is a great way to get vegetables into your. All right, let's talk about a couple of herbs that are really great for this aspect. And it's going to be, one of them is going to be dandelion. So dandelion leaf, you can get it as a tea, you can get it in a tea bag, and you can also go out if you have dandelions growing around you in your yard, and most people do. If you have ground that's reasonably clean, you can go out and you can pull dandelions as long as you didn't spray any chemicals on them. You can just pick the dandelions and you can eat them. And you could also make a tea out of the dandelions that you pick for yourself, or you can eat them like a salad. Dandelion greens and the flowers actually make a wonderful salad. And so there you have a vegetable, like we were just talking about vegetables. And so either one's going to be fine. So either option, you can get it as a tea, like I said, the dried leaves, or you can eat it like a vegetable. And the effect that we're looking for with a dandelion is this diuretic effect. And when we're talking about dandelion for diuretic effects, we're talking about the leaf in particular. You may find in the store they have dandelion root tea bags and dandelion leaf tea bags. So for this effect, you want the leaf. The root is also great medicine. I'm going to actually show you later this week how to make a dandelion root tincture. It's great for detoxification, so many things in the body. But for this purpose, for the diuretic purpose, for the removing the extra fluid in the body, we're looking at the dandelion leaf. It has the same effect as a water pill. It helps your body get rid of the excess water, helps it get rid of the extra fluid that really isn't serving you, and you don't need it in your system. And so again, it's that water retention that can cause the pressure to raise in your system, cause that hypertension effect. So with the dandelion leaf, we can eliminate the excess water, and that reduces the amount of pressure in your body. And the nice thing about dandelion is it's also feeding you at the same time. It's a food. It's delivering a bunch of vitamins and minerals into your body. So basically, it's a vegetable that helps you fight off inflammation. It's a vegetable that helps to normalize function inside your body. And it's a vegetable that helps you to get rid of excess water. When we're talking about dandelion or dandelion leaf tea, again, we're going to talk about drinking 3 to 4 cups a day of this tea. And if you let it sit for a long time, you let it brew for at least an hour or even 4 hours, that would be great, because you're going to pull out all the active constituents of that dandelion leaf in the tea. You want to put a few tea bags in if you can't afford it, and you can make a whole quart at a time. Put in at least 4 tea bags, maybe 6 or 8 tea bags into the quart, and let it sit for, like I said, 1 to 4 hours. And the reason that we let it sit longer is because there's a lot of vitamins and minerals in that dandelion leaf, and we want to make sure that we get all of them by giving it enough time to seep out into the water. And so you can just let this tea sit there and brew for a while. And in the beginning, it won't be very dark. You'll notice it's like a light colored tea, but after time goes on, it's going to get like a dark brown color. And the darker it gets, the more stuff is coming out of that leaf into the tea. And that's going to actually be beneficial for you. So you can actually use tea bags, or you can use the actual leaves. You can also get more out of the leaves if you want to eat them after you've made the tea. That is an option as well. But when you eat the dandelion leaves, then you get pretty much everything, right? You get everything possible, and they don't taste bad. It's just a little mushy, but you're going to have help for your digestion, and you're going to be able to access all of those vitamins and minerals and all the good nutrients in there for you. So that's dandelion. So if you make your tea out of fresh leaves or dried leaves, either way, you can eat the leaves. You can also eat the leaves in a salad. You're not going to get as much of the diuretic effect, but you will still get the benefit. So you can eat the leaves before you make the tea in a salad like lettuce, or you can brew the tea and then you can eat the leaves out of it. They'll be a little soggy like overboiled spinach, but if you're trying to get the most out of your dandelion roots or leaves, and you can just swallow them down, then you don't waste anything. You're getting everything out of it, and you're getting the most bang for your buck. So you can just eat that, and then you have the tea to drink as well. So you don't want to waste any part of the dandelion. Okay, so now if you are already taking a diuretic, if you're taking a water pill or you're taking a medication that helps expel water, then you're not going to want to add dandelion leaf on top of that. So that's because you're already having this action happening. So you don't want to double it up and put twice the amount of the diuretic effect in your body. It would still be fine if you eat dandelion leaves, because they're not going to have quite the same diuretic effect, but you are going to get the nutrients. So you can eat dandelion leaves if you're on a diuretic medication, but if you are taking a diuretic, you don't need to do the dandelion tea. So the other plant we're going to talk about here is parsley leaf. And parsley is also a diuretic. It's going to help you get rid of that extra water, but it also has a lot of vitamins and minerals. And there are a lot of shared actions between parsley and dandelion. And most grocery stores have a lot of parsley. It's actually very inexpensive. So if you're looking to have an herbal medicine that is actually really easy on your budget and is actually considered a fresh vegetable, you can get a whole bunch of parsley for a little under $1. And so that's great. And it'll last you a few days, and you can work with the leaves in that bunch. You can also work with the stems. So you have very little waste. You can chop it up and you can put it in recipes, or you can do it as a tea. This is going to have a diuretic effect, and the vitamin and mineral content help get rid of extra water. You can eat it in a salad. You can add it to anything that you're cooking. And of course, you can chop it up really small and mix it into something and hardly even know that it's there. If you put it in spaghetti sauce or chili or something like that, even if you don't particularly love the taste of parsley, you'll hardly even know it's in there, but you'll still be getting all of those wonderful diuretic benefits from parsley. So if you're wanting to work with parsley, we're going to want to do this every day, just like all the other herbs that we're talking about. You really want to lower your blood pressure and keep it low. And that means you're going to have to do these things every single day. And we're going to be looking at like a quarter cup every day. That would be a wonderful amount. And if you're going to make it into a tea, like we talked about with the dandelion, then same thing, about 3 to 4 cups of the tea per day. You can totally switch back and forth between the dandelion or the parsley, and depending on what's available to you and what you like better, but you can use them interchangeable. And the parsley is another herb that has effects on blood sugar as well. And that's a wonderful thing, right? But we're going to talk about this a little more in detail as it pertains to blood pressure when we cover diabetes or natural medicine for diabetes. But it's important to note that if you are taking a medication to control your diabetes, you're going to want to test your blood glucose levels regularly, because there's a chance that the parsley can actually improve your blood sugar so much that you might need to call your doctor and have them make some changes to your dosage of your medication. So if you're going to start working with parsley every day, then it's a good idea to just test on a regular basis and make sure those numbers aren't coming down too low. So that is parsley. And there's other things besides the herbs that you can do to help with that diuretic effect. And one of them is going to be moving your body or moving differently. This can help you to get out the excess water. It can be difficult to get out excess water that's settled down in your legs, but walking actually physically helps to circulate and pump those fluids and get them moving again. So when we're walking, our muscles can squeeze that water up from our legs up to our bladder so that we can pee it out. So this is okay if you're walking slowly, or if you're walking short distances, or if you're only walking around your house, even inside your house. That can make a big difference. So whatever type of walking you can do, or whatever type of gentle movements you can do, that's going to be very helpful when it comes to getting excess fluid out of your body. The best thing you can do here is do it in intervals, so 3 times a day, to break up those long periods of sedentary sitting. My favorite way to advise people to do this is to walk after each of your meals. So if you get in the habit of going for a short walk after each meal, that's a great way to remember to do this, because it comes like a little habit. You say, okay, I'm going to eat and then I'm going to go for my walk. It just becomes something that you do, a regular pattern in your life. And it also helps you with your digestion. And so it can help with your blood sugar, it can help with your blood pressure, and it can help with your digestion as well. So having just a brief little walk, like 5 minutes away from your house and then 5 minutes back, just turn around 3 times a day. So you get basically a 10-minute walk 3 times a day, that can be really beneficial. Now, if you're one of those people that we talked about earlier that has a job that keeps you moving all day, you may not want to go for a walk when you get home. You might be tired. And so what you can do here is you can actually lay on the ground with your feet up the wall. It's called feet up the wall pose. And it's actually a nice, gentle stretch for your body. It's stretch for your back. But what you're doing here is you're not actually moving, but you're allowing gravity to move that extra fluid down out of your legs. So you can lay that way and listen to some music. You can lay that way and talk to your spouse or your children. You can read a book, or you can just be quiet and meditate and do nothing for a little while and not do anything for anyone but yourself. All of those things are fine. So you can just lay down with your feet up the wall for 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, a couple times a day, doing what's comfortable for you. If you do it 2 to 3 times a day, you can do it in the morning, you can do it when you get home, and you can do it right before bed. That's going to give the chance for all that fluid to come down. Now, another big thing that we need to work on for some people is quitting smoking. This can be particularly hard, specifically because tobacco is so addictive. But if you've got issues with your blood pressure, it is very important to quit smoking. And one thing that can help you is the herb that we talked about earlier, Tulsi. So Tulsi can help a lot with that. So it's that herb that is also called holy basil. And what it does is it helps to reduce cravings, not for sugar cravings, but also for things like nicotine. And it really can help you get a handle on those cravings, and it can boost your mood at the same time. So Tulsi can really help a lot if you're going through the process of trying to cut down or quit smoking. And again, it's fine to take it as tea bags or a tincture or even a supplement. If you're drinking 3 to 4 cups of Tulsi tea, that should really make a big difference in your inner feeling and your ability to make this transition out of the habit of smoking. And you can take it as often as you need to support yourself, whether it's supporting yourself from an addiction to food, an addiction to smoking, or something else. And as we mentioned before, if you're going to work with Tulsi in large and consistent doses, you want to do 3 to 4 cups a day or a quart of tea per day. And that's going to have that impact on your blood sugar levels. Again, just a note, if you're taking diabetes medication, you're going to want to monitor your blood sugar regularly. And you're also going to want to let your doctor know if your blood sugar is coming down too well. So those are some natural strategies, both lifestyle and plant medicine, to help reduce high blood pressure. And so next we're going to be talking about